The Imperial survey ship emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. Its sensors immediately detected thousands of artificial satellites orbiting the third planet, along with scattered debris from centuries of space exploration. Commander Stone stood on the bridge, his purple-tinted skin reflecting the blue light of the nearby star. "Another primitive civilization," he said, checking the initial scan results. "They haven't even colonized their own system properly." His second-in-command, Major Vale, looked concerned. "Sir, they're broadcasting on all frequencies. Military channels, civilian bands, everything. It's unusual." Stone waved his hand dismissively. "Standard procedure. Send the submission package. Give them the honor of joining the Empire peacefully." The Empire had done this 1,000 times before. Find a developing civilization, show overwhelming force, and add another species to their vast collection. It was routine. But this time was different. Within hours of receiving the Empire's message, Earth responded. A simple request for a face-to-face meeting. Stone agreed, expecting the usual display of fear and awe from the primitives. The meeting took place on the neutral ground of Luna Base, Earth's oldest off-world settlement. Stone brought 10 of his best guards, all wearing the latest Imperial battle armor. He expected to meet trembling diplomats. Instead, he found himself facing 3 calm military officers. Admiral Thompson spoke first, his voice steady and clear. "We've reviewed your demands for Earth to join your empire. Our answer is simple. Withdraw your ships and mark this system as restricted space." Stone laughed, the sound echoing in the conference room. "You dare threaten the Empire? We have conquered 10,000 worlds. Our fleets darken the skies of rebellious planets. Our technology is impressive," Lieutenant Reed interrupted, sliding a data tablet across the table. "But not unbeatable. We've analyzed your ship's capabilities from our scans." Stone glanced at the tablet, his expression changing from amusement to confusion. The humans had not only scanned his ship, but had already identified potential weaknesses in Imperial shields and weapon systems. General Miller, the oldest of the 3, leaned forward. "Commander Stone, humanity has spent its entire history fighting itself. We've mastered the art of war in ways your empire, with its easy victories, never needed to learn. Every major advancement in our history, from nuclear power to spaceflight, came from our military research. You speak boldly for a species that hasn't left its own star system." Stone replied, but his voice carried a hint of uncertainty. Thompson activated a holographic display showing Earth's military history. "In the last 300 years alone, we've developed and countered weapons that could destroy entire planets. We've created and defended against artificial intelligence that could outthink any organic mind. We've fought wars with soldiers, machines, and everything in between. Every human you see," Reed added, "is descended from survivors. Our ancestors lived through ice ages, plagues, world wars, and near-extinction events. We're still here because we never stop fighting, never stop adapting." Stone stood up, his patience wearing thin. "You have 30 days to submit to Imperial rule. After that, we will take this system by force. No single planet can resist the Empire." As Stone turned to leave, Miller called out, "We're not threatening you, Commander. We're warning you. For your own sake, leave us alone." Back on his ship, Stone prepared his report to Imperial High Command. He requested a standard pacification fleet, 200 ships to overwhelm Earth's defenses. As he worked, Major Vale entered his office. "Sir, our deep scans of Earth are troubling," Vale said. "They have weapons we can't identify. Their orbital defense grid is more extensive than anything we've encountered. And their electronic warfare capabilities. Vale, they're primitives with delusions of grandeur." Stone snapped. "The Empire will crush them like all the others." Vale hesitated before speaking again. "Sir, there's something else. We detected quantum communications between Earth and what appear to be cloaked installations throughout their system. They have technology they're not showing us." Stone dismissed Vale's concerns. The Empire had never failed to conquer a single-system civilization. These humans would learn their place, just like all the others. As his ship prepared to jump back to Imperial space, Stone didn't notice the small, stealthy probes that attached themselves to his vessel's hull. He didn't know that humans were already analyzing his ship's energy signatures, plotting weakness points, and preparing countermeasures. The Empire had just made the biggest mistake in its history. They had given humanity time to prepare for war. Exactly 30 days after Commander Stone's ultimatum, the Imperial pacification fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system. 200 warships, their silver hulls gleaming in the distant sunlight, emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. At the fleet's center, Admiral Rex stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Imperial Might. "Status report," Rex commanded, his voice carrying the confidence of 100 victories. "All ships present and accounted for." "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "Earth's defensive fleet appears to be absent." Rex smiled. Like most primitive species, the humans had probably hidden their ships behind their moon or tried some other basic tactic. "Begin standard advance. Maintain formation Delta 7. The Imperial fleet moved forward in their practiced pattern, weapons charged and shields at maximum strength. As they passed the orbit of Neptune, Rex noticed something odd. His sensors showed no human ships at all, not even attempts at concealment. "Sir," his sensor officer called out, "we're detecting some kind of interference. Very subtle, almost like." The officer never finished his sentence. Without warning, space itself seemed to ripple around the Imperial fleet. Dozens of human warships suddenly appeared, their stealth systems deactivating to reveal vessels unlike anything the Empire had ever encountered. "Impossible," Rex shouted. "Their cloaking technology can't be this advanced." The human ships were smaller than Imperial vessels, but bristled with weapons. Before Rex could issue orders, the humans opened fire. Instead of standard energy weapons, they launched swarms of self-guided missiles and kinetic projectiles that ignored Imperial shields entirely. "Shields are useless," his defensive officer screamed. "They're using physical ammunition. Our energy barriers can't stop them." 20 Imperial ships exploded in the first volley. The perfectly maintained formation broke apart as captains tried to evade the unexpected attack. Rex watched in horror as more human vessels decloaked all around his fleet, boxing them in with deadly crossfire. "Launch fighters," Rex ordered. "Show these primitives real space combat." Imperial fighter squadrons poured from their carrier ships, thousands of small craft moving to engage the human fleet. But the humans were ready. Small, automated drones swarmed out to meet them, each one carrying a miniature nuclear device. The Imperial fighters' sophisticated targeting systems couldn't lock onto the simple, radiation-hardened drones. "Sir, we're detecting energy builds-ups from Earth's direction," his tactical officer reported, voice shaking. Rex turned to look at the main display just as massive rail gun installations on Earth's moon opened fire. Huge metal slugs, accelerated to near-relativistic speeds, tore through the Imperial formation. Ships split apart, their advanced armor useless against the sheer kinetic force. "This is impossible," Rex muttered. "They're supposed to be primitives. Their technology shouldn't." "Sir, nuclear detonations in sectors 7 through 12. Our ships, they're being cooked by the radiation. Our radiation shielding isn't designed for this level of." The battle descended into chaos. Imperial ships, designed for elegant energy weapon duels at medium range, found themselves fighting an enemy that broke every rule of civilized combat. Humans used electromagnetic pulses to disable Imperial systems, nuclear weapons to create radiation hazards, and kinetic weapons that ignored energy shields entirely. "Retreat," Rex finally ordered, watching his fleet be torn apart. "All ships, emergency jump tow." A human missile struck his flagship's bridge. As emergency force fields snapped into place, Rex saw the full extent of the disaster. Of his 200 ships, barely 40 remained operational. The humans hadn't just beaten them. They had revealed the fundamental weaknesses in Imperial military doctrine. As the surviving Imperial ships flowed into hyperspace, Admiral Thompson stood on the bridge of the Earth flagship Humanity's Pride. Around him, his crew worked calmly and efficiently, tracking the retreating enemy vessels. "Send word to command," Thompson ordered. "First contact battle concluded. Minimal casualties on our side. Enemy forces routed." He paused, then added, "And tell them they were right about Imperial shield configurations. They never considered having to stop physical projectiles." Lieutenant Reed, now serving as Thompson's tactical officer, looked up from his station. "Sir, should we pursue?" Thompson shook his head. "No need. They'll be back with a bigger fleet. But now they know what they're dealing with." He smiled grimly. "And we've only shown them a fraction of what humanity can do." In the debris field that had been the Imperial fleet, automated human salvage ships began their work. Every piece of Imperial technology would be studied, improved upon, and turned against its makers. The Empire had started this war expecting an easy victory. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant. The Imperial High Command chamber fell silent as Admiral Rex finished his report. The massive holographic display showed the devastating losses from the first battle against Earth. Around the circular table, 12 Imperial commanders sat in stunned silence. Grand Marshal Wells, the Empire's supreme military commander, spoke first. "You expect us to believe that a single system species defeated our fleet with primitive weapons?" Rex's hologram nodded. "They used physical projectiles, nuclear devices, and some form of advanced stealth technology. Our shields were useless against." "Enough." Wells slammed his fist on the table. "This is clearly a fluke. Some lucky primitive tactics caught our forces off guard. Nothing more." In the corner of the chamber, Chief Scientist Morris studied the battle data with growing concern. "Sir, with respect, these humans show remarkable tactical innovation. Their use of kinetic weapons alone suggests." "They got lucky," Wells interrupted. "We've conquered 10,000 worlds. No single planet can stand against the Empire, especially not some backwater world that hasn't even colonized its own system." The discussion continued for hours. The Imperial commanders, each with decades of experience in subjugating primitive worlds, refused to accept that humans could be a genuine threat. They dismissed the lost ships as acceptable casualties and began planning a proper invasion. Meanwhile, on a seemingly abandoned space station near Jupiter, Lieutenant Reed led a team of human engineers in studying captured Imperial technology. They had recovered 3 mostly intact Imperial ships from the battle. "Look at this," Reed said, pointing to an Imperial engine core. "Their faster-than-light drive isn't that different from our prototype designs. We could adapt this." His chief engineer nodded. "Their shield technology is impressive, but it's one-dimensional. They only ever expected to face energy weapons, no consideration for kinetic impacts or radiation." Across the solar system, humanity prepared. The Empire's first attack had revealed crucial weaknesses. Imperial ships relied heavily on energy shields, but had minimal physical armor. Their weapons were powerful, but predictable. Most importantly, their tactics showed centuries of fighting opponents who followed the same rules of engagement. Back in Imperial space, Grand Marshal Wells unveiled his master plan to the High Command. "We will launch the largest fleet in Imperial history. 5,000 ships. Let's see how these humans handle the full might of the Empire." Chief Scientist Morris tried one last time to warn them. "Sir, please. The battle data shows they have technology we don't understand. Their stealth systems alone are nothing compared to our numbers," Wells said dismissively. "Begin the fleet assembly. We'll crush these humans and add their weapons to our arsenal. In time, they'll thank us for civilizing them." What the Empire didn't know was that their entire conversation was being monitored. Hidden throughout Imperial space, Human stealth probes had been gathering intelligence since before the first battle. Every Imperial transmission, every fleet movement, every tactical plan flowed back to Earth's strategic command. Admiral Thompson stood in Earth's main command center, watching real-time feeds from the spy probes. They're gathering a massive fleet. Exactly as we predicted. General Miller nodded. Pride. It's always been the Empire's weakness. They've never faced an enemy that could truly challenge them. He turned to his staff. Implement Operation Shadow Strike. It's time to show them what asymmetric warfare really means. As the Empire gathered its fleet for a massive assault, they failed to notice small changes throughout their territory. Communication relays occasionally flickered. Supply ships reported minor course corrections. Maintenance crews found slight irregularities in ship systems, but dismissed them as routine issues. The Empire was preparing for a grand battle, a massive fleet action that would crush Earth's defenses through sheer numbers. They expected humans to fight like every other species they'd encountered, with ships lined up in formation, exchanging fire in organized patterns. But humans had spent millennia fighting themselves, developing tactics far beyond anything the Empire could imagine. While the Imperial fleet gathered, human operators were already inside their systems, laying the groundwork for battles the Empire wouldn't even see coming. The Empire thought their greatest strength was their size. They were about to learn that sometimes, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. The Imperial invasion fleet jumped into the Sol system with overwhelming force. 5,000 warships filled space, their weapons charged and ready. Grand Marshal Wells stood proudly on his command ship, expecting to see fear and panic from the humans. Instead, he found nothing. No ships, no defenses. Even Earth itself seemed quiet. Scan everything, Wells ordered. They must be hiding somewhere. Before his crews could complete their scans, chaos erupted throughout the fleet. Hundreds of ships suddenly lost power. Communication systems went dark. Navigation computers started showing conflicting data. What's happening? Wells demanded. His technical officer worked frantically at his console. Sir, our systems are compromised. The humans, they've been in our computers since the first battle. Across the fleet, the virus that human spies had planted weeks ago activated. Ships turned against each other, their targeting systems identifying friendly vessels as enemies. Confusion spread as commanders couldn't tell which orders were real and which were fake. Then the humans struck. Small, fast attack craft emerged from hidden positions in the asteroid belt. They darted between Imperial ships, firing precision shots at vulnerable points identified by weeks of careful intelligence gathering. Each human ship carried weapons specifically designed to exploit Imperial weaknesses. Fight back, Wells screamed. We have 5,000 ships. But numbers meant nothing in the face of complete chaos. The Imperial fleet's rigid command structure collapsed as ships lost contact with each other. Their sophisticated AI systems, compromised by human viruses, turned from helpful assistance into dangerous liabilities. Captain Anderson led the human strike forces from his ship, the Shadow Striker. All units, execute attack pattern Delta. Remember your training. Hit and run. Don't stay in one place. Human vessels struck from unexpected angles, fired their weapons, and vanished before the Imperial ships could respond. Decades of war games in the asteroid belt had taught humanity how to fight in 3 dimensions, using terrain that the Empire considered worthless. Deep in Imperial territory, more chaos spread. Lieutenant Reed, leading a stealth mission, had achieved his objective. Charges set on their primary supply depot, he reported through quantum channels. Beginning Phase 2. The Empire had never considered that humans might strike behind their lines. As their main fleet struggled in Sol system, their supply lines came under attack. Human stealth ships, reverse-engineered from captured Imperial technology, struck logistics centers and fuel depots. Impossible. Wells raged as reports flooded in. How are they attacking our core worlds? They're trapped in their own system. But humans had never been trapped. While the Empire gathered their massive fleet, Smaller human ships had slipped through their territory, placing weapons and strike teams in strategic locations. Now those assets activated, throwing the Empire's carefully organized war machine into disarray. Admiral Thompson coordinated the battle from a hidden command center in the Kuiper Belt. Holographic displays showed the Imperial fleet breaking apart under simultaneous attacks from multiple directions. "Launch Phase 3, he ordered. New weapons, developed by studying Imperial technology, deployed across the battlefield. Electromagnetic pulses disabled Imperial shields. Quantum disruptors severed their faster-than-light communications. Artificial gravity weapons turned their own engines against them. The Empire's mighty fleet began to crack. Ships either retreated or found themselves unable to fight effectively. The few vessels that maintained combat capability were quickly isolated and disabled by coordinated human attacks. Grand Marshal Wells watched in horror as his invasion force fell apart. All ships, fall back. Regroup at Rally Point Alpha. But Rally Point Alpha no longer existed. Human forces had destroyed it hours ago, along with every other designated fallback position. The Empire had expected a straightforward battle against primitive humans. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that struck from shadows, turned their own technology against them, and never fought fair. As the Imperial fleet retreated in disorder, Captain Anderson allowed himself a small smile. "All units, maintain pursuit. Don't let them regroup." He looked at the tactical display, showing human forces spread across Imperial space. The real war is just beginning. The Empire was learning a harsh lesson. They had spent centuries perfecting the art of fighting conventional wars against conventional enemies. But humans had spent their history learning to win at any cost, using any means necessary. The Empire's strength had become their weakness, and humanity's supposed weakness had become their strength. 3 months after the failed invasion of Earth, the Imperial High Command faced a nightmare they had never imagined. Their mighty empire was under attack from all directions. Humans had turned their own conquered worlds against them. Grand Marshal Wells stared at the tactical display in disbelief. How are they doing this? They're just one species from one planet. The display showed human forces using captured Imperial ships, modified with Earth technology. But instead of fighting like the Empire, they fought like humans. Imperial designs meant for straight-line combat now performed impossible maneuvers. Their engines and systems pushed far beyond their intended limits. Chief Scientist Morris studied the data with growing admiration. They're not just using our technology, they're improving it. Look at these energy readings. They've doubled the power output of standard Imperial engines. On the front lines, Captain Anderson led a fleet of hybrid warships, Imperial hulls fitted with human weapons and Earth's combat eye. His target was the Empire's largest shipyard in the Centauri sector. "All ships, Battle Formation Chaos 6, Anderson commanded. Remember, unpredictability is our advantage. Fight like humans, not like them." The Imperial defenders waited in their standard formation, expecting another hit-and-run attack. Instead, Anderson's fleet split into 3 groups. One group launched a frontal assault, while another struck from below the system's orbital plane, a direction Imperial doctrine considered tactically worthless. The third group did something the Empire thought impossible. They jumped their ships into hyperspace for just 2 seconds, appearing inside the Imperial formation. At point-blank range, they launched old-fashioned nuclear torpedoes. "Status report," Anderson called as the explosions lit up space. "Shipyard defenses down," his tactical officer reported. Their commanders are arguing about whose doctrine to follow. Their response is uncoordinated. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Reed had achieved something even more devastating. Leading a special operations team, he had made contact with resistance movements on conquered worlds. The Empire's subject species had watched humans fight back successfully, and now they wanted to learn. "Here's how we beat their patrols," Reed explained to a group of alien rebels. "They always follow the same patterns. Their eye is predictable. Hit them when and where their doctrine says you can't." Across Imperial space, Conquered species began adopting human tactics. Rigid Imperial patrol routes became killing grounds. Supply lines were attacked by ships appearing from supposedly unusable terrain. Every Imperial impossible became a human opportunity. Admiral Thompson coordinated the overall strategy from humanity's pride. His display showed green dots spreading across Imperial space, worlds and systems where resistance forces had adapted human warfare methods. "Send the next data package to our allies," Thompson ordered. "Show them how we modified the Imperial shields. Let them see that the Empire isn't invincible." The Empire's response was predictable. They tried to gather another massive fleet, but this time they faced an enemy that controlled their supply lines. Human raiders and local resistance fighters had captured or destroyed most of their fuel depots. In the Imperial High Command Chamber, Wells received more bad news. "Sir, we've lost contact with the Orion sector. All Imperial forces there have been destroyed or captured. The local species are. They're fighting like humans now." "Impossible." Wells slammed his fist down. "They're primitives. All of them. How can they be defeating us?" Chief Scientist Morris spoke quietly. "Because we taught them that resistance was futile. Humans taught them it wasn't." Looking at the strategic display, Morris could see the Empire's defeat taking shape. Their perfectly organized military structure was falling apart. Every defeat taught their enemies more about Imperial weaknesses. Every victory showed other species that humans had been right. The Empire could be beaten. On Earth, General Miller reviewed the latest reports with satisfaction. "The Empire spent centuries teaching the galaxy to obey. We're teaching it to fight back." The Empire had believed their greatest strength was their unity. Every ship, every commander, every world following the same doctrine. But humans had turned that strength into a fatal weakness. By teaching others to fight unpredictably, to improvise, to reject Imperial doctrine, they had started a fire that couldn't be contained. The Empire was learning too late that they hadn't just started a war with humanity. They had started a revolution. The Imperial Palace on Capital World shook as another explosion rocked the city. Grand Marshal Wells watched from his command center as riots spread through the streets. After centuries of absolute control, the Empire was facing something new: internal rebellion. "Sir," his aide reported, "we've lost contact with the eastern sector. The blue species have. They've declared independence. They're using modified human weapons." Wells stared at the screens showing chaos across the Empire. Every species they had conquered was now learning to fight back. Humans hadn't just beaten Imperial forces. They had shown the galaxy that the Empire wasn't invincible. On a distant mining world, Lieutenant Reed met with leaders from 12 different alien species. The room was filled with former slaves and servants, now learning to become warriors. The Empire's strength was always an illusion, Reed explained, showing them captured Imperial battle plans. They win because everyone fights the way they expect. Break their rules, and they break. One of the alien leaders, a tall crystalline being, spoke up. "But their weapons, their ships, are just tools," Reed interrupted. "Tools can be turned against their makers. Watch." He activated a hologram showing how human engineers had modified Imperial technology. Weapons designed for straight-line combat now fired around corners. Shields meant to stop energy beams now reflected them back at their source. Every Imperial advantage had become a weakness. Meanwhile, Captain Anderson led a combined fleet of human and alien ships. Former Imperial slaves fought alongside Earth's veterans, using tactics that broke every rule of Imperial combat doctrine. "All ships, execute attack pattern chaos," Anderson commanded. "Remember what you learned. Be unpredictable. Be creative. Be free." The battle that followed would have shocked Imperial tacticians. Ships darted through debris fields, used gravity wells as weapons, and struck from directions the Empire considered impossible. This wasn't just a rebellion. It was a complete rejection of Imperial military thinking. Admiral Thompson coordinated the larger strategy from a hidden base. His display showed green lights spreading across Imperial space as more worlds joined the revolution. Each victory inspired more species to rise up. "Send the next weapons package to the Crimson Sector rebels," Thompson ordered. "And make sure they understand. We're not giving them orders. We're giving them choices." That was the key difference. Where the Empire demanded obedience, humans offered partnership. Where Imperial doctrine required strict adherence, human tactics encouraged innovation. In the Imperial High Command Chamber, now half empty as more commanders defected, Chief Scientist Morris made his final report. "The humans didn't just beat us militarily," he explained. "They beat us ideologically. Every species we conquered is learning from them. Not just how to fight, but how to think freely." Wells, his uniform no longer pristine, slumped in his chair. "How many worlds have we lost?" "Sir, you're asking the wrong question," Morris replied. "We haven't lost worlds. We've lost control. The humans showed everyone that our control was always based on fear and rigid thinking." Across Imperial space, the revolution took different forms. Some worlds erupted in open rebellion. Others quietly switched sides, their imperial governors replaced by local councils. Many simply stopped obeying imperial orders, inspired by humanity's example of independence. On the front lines, Lieutenant Reed's mixed crew of humans and aliens demonstrated the new way of war. Their ships, modified with both human and alien innovations, moved in ways imperial computers couldn't predict. The Empire thought unity meant uniformity. Reed told his crew, "We're showing them that real unity comes from embracing differences." The Empire had spent centuries building a system where everyone followed the same rules, used the same tactics, and obeyed the same orders. Humans had shattered that system not by destroying it, but by showing a better way. As the revolution spread, the Empire faced a truth they couldn't handle. They hadn't just lost a war with humanity. They had lost their power over every species they had ever conquered. The galaxy was learning to think like humans, creatively, independently, and without fear. The Empire's perfect order was collapsing. In its place, something new was emerging. A galaxy where different species fought together, shared ideas, and chose their own paths. The humans hadn't just started a war. They had started an evolution. The Imperial capital world's defenses bristled with weapons as the combined fleet of human and alien ships emerged from hyperspace. This was the Empire's last stand, their final chance to maintain their grip on power. Admiral Thompson stood on the bridge of humanity's pride, now scared from countless battles. Beside him, representatives from 20 different species watched the Imperial planet grow larger on the main screen. "They're powering up their planetary defense grid," Lieutenant Reed reported from his tactical station. "Energy readings are off the charts. They'd got something big down there." Thompson nodded. "They always said they had a super weapon saved for their darkest hour. Looks like we're about to see it." The Imperial weapon revealed itself as massive energy collectors around the planet's equator began to glow. Giant arrays, built over centuries in secret, prepared to unleash power beyond anything the galaxy had seen. In the Imperial Palace's deepest bunker, Grand Marshal Wells gave the order. "Activate the planet killer. Show these rebels what true power looks like." The weapon fired, a beam of pure energy that could shatter worlds. But Thompson smiled as it approached their fleet. "All ships, execute Operation Mirror." Every vessel in the combined fleet activated modified Imperial shields, adjusted to human specifications. The massive energy beam struck them and bounced back, split into thousands of smaller beams that struck precisely calculated points across the Imperial defenses. "Impossible," Wells shouted as his own weapon's energy tore through his defensive grid. "How did they know? How did they counter it?" Captain Anderson's voice came over all frequencies. "We didn't just study your technology. We improved it. Every weapon you built, we learned to turn against you." The combined fleet moved forward, led by ships crewed by former Imperial slaves. They had learned human tactics well, striking from multiple angles, using the debris of destroyed defense platforms as cover. All ships begin landing operations, Thompson ordered. Remember, we're not here for revenge. We're here to end this, once and for all. Ground forces, a mix of humans and allied species, landed outside the capital city. Each group brought their own strengths. Humans with their tactical innovation, crystal beings with their natural armor, energy species with their unique abilities to manipulate Imperial tech. In the palace war room, Wells prepared his final surprise. Launch the drone fleet. All of them. Millions of automated Imperial warships rose from hidden bases, but they faced something unexpected. Human AI systems merged with alien consciousness technology. The drones found themselves outthought and outmaneuvered by an intelligence that could actually learn and adapt. Lieutenant Reed led the assault on the palace itself. The Empire taught everyone to obey without thinking. He told his mixed squad of humans and aliens. That was their biggest mistake. The palace defenses fell quickly. Imperial guards, trained to fight by rigid rules, couldn't handle opponents who improvised and cooperated in ways their training said were impossible. In the end, Wells stood in his command center, watching as Thompson and representatives from every rebel species entered. How? Wells asked, his voice barely a whisper. We had everything. Numbers, technology, unity. You had uniformity, not unity, Thompson corrected. Real unity comes from working together while staying different. Every species brings its own strengths. Humans just showed them how to use them. The victory wasn't just military. As news spread across the galaxy, the last Imperial holdouts surrendered. But instead of replacing Imperial rule with their own, humans did something unprecedented. Every world chooses its own path forward, Thompson announced to the galaxy. We'll share knowledge, trade, and defend each other. But no more empires. No more forcing everyone to be the same. A new Galactic Council formed, with every species having an equal voice. Humans shared their technology and tactics freely, while learning from their new allies. The Empire's rigid uniformity was replaced by a diversity of approaches and ideas. The Imperial Palace became a museum and meeting place. In its main hall, they placed a simple plaque with words that the Empire had learned too late. The greatest strength isn't in making everyone the same. It's in learning from our differences. Humanity's first lesson to the stars. Across the galaxy, former Imperial worlds flourished as they developed their own ways of doing things. The age of enforced uniformity was over. The age of creative cooperation had begun. And it all started because one species dared to say no to an empire and taught others they could do the same.